First up, we'll talk about daycare in Alberta.
Let us pray as Canadians and as Albertans to give thanks for the precious gifts of freedom and peace which we enjoy. As members of this Legislative Assembly, we rededicate
ourselves to the valued traditions of parliamentary democracy as a means of serving both
our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction to visitors.
The membership somehow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to introduce through you to
members of the House, Mr. Serhiy Halavati, a recently elected member of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic Supreme Soviet. Mr. Halavati is visiting our assembly
to learn about parliamentary democracy and has over the past 4 days been graciously hosted by your office, Mr. Speaker. I would ask Mr. Halavati, who is seated in
your gallery, to rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
Member for Calgary-Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, I too would like to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly. Sitting in your gallery is Mr. Bela Balaz, who has been recently appointed as Honorary Consul for Hungary. Mr. Balaz is the sole consul for Hungary in Alberta and is the first person to be appointed in Alberta for Central European countries. His jurisdiction is specifically Alberta, and his mandate is to further the trade and technical exchange in relations between Alberta and Hungary. Would Mr. Balaz please rise to receive the warm welcome from this Assembly?
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Member for Edmonton Glengarry, followed by Edmonton Centre, followed by Edmonton Avonlea. Speaker, I've already given written notice to the chair indicating that after question period I'll be asking for unanimous support, under Standing Order 40,
to deal with the following motion. Be it resolved that this House observe a minute of silence in remembrance of the 14 young women who were murdered on December the 6th, 1989 in Montreal. Thank you. Edmonton Centre, not today. This previous notice. I'll defer to Edmonton Avonmore, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I wish to give oral notice of motion under Standing Order 40 to have the Assembly consider the following motion. Be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly does today commemorate the massacre in Montreal on December 6, 1989 of 14 women by observing 2 minutes of silence and by establishing a select standing committee of this Assembly to hold public hearings across the province in order to formulate and put in place a comprehensive action plan with budgetary support to work to eradicate violence against women and children in Alberta. This was given to you yesterday, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Edmonton Center.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to, under the provisions of Standing Order 40, to present the following motion that the Legislative Assembly of Alberta congratulate the Grey Nuns of Canada, and especially their superiors and members ministry in Alberta, on the occasion of the canonization of their founder, Madame Margaret Douville, by His Holiness Pope John Paul II in Rome on Sunday, December the 9th, 1990. And we further commend all those who minister to the poor, the sick, and the needy, following in the example of this first Canadian-born saint.
Thank you.
Introduction of bills.
For Edmonton Glengarry.
Speaker, I beg leave to introduce Bill 231, the Public Service Pay Equity Act. This bill would require government to implement pay equity in the public service so that employees of government would be paid equitably for their services regardless of their gender. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Glengarry has moved first reading of Bill 231, Public Service Pay Equity Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 231, Public Service Pay Equity Act, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Decor, is now read a first time.
Member for Edmonton Whitemud, followed by the member for Calgary Northwest, and then the member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby request leave to introduce Bill 267, an act to commit government to a 5-year funding planning framework. This bill would require government to plan funding levels for those groups receiving major operating grants for subsequent 5-year periods on an annual basis. Announcements of the funding levels would have to be made by the first week in January and would include the following departments: education, advanced education, health, and municipal affairs. Announced levels would not necessarily be binding upon the provincial government, but rather are to act as a guide for the affected groups when planning future expenditures.
The honourable member for Edmonton Whitemud has moved first reading of Bill 267, an act to commit government to a 5-year funding planning framework. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 267, an act to commit government to a 5-year funding planning framework, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Wickman, is now read a first time.
Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 288, the bill being the Telemarketing Act. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a bill to limit the hours during which telemarketers may operate and also to ban telemarketing on Sundays and statutory holidays. It deals with all forms of telemarketing, whether in person or by machine, and covers the telephone and fax machines also.
The honourable member for Calgary Northwest has moved first reading of Bill 288, Telemarketing Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 288, the Telemarketing Act, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Brusiker, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce Bill number 289, this being an act to amend the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Act. Mr. Speaker, this amendment is to allow for private clinics and agencies to bill the healthcare insurance plan for counseling and treatment services to family violence abusers and victims.
The honourable member for Edmonton Gold Bar has moved first reading of Bill 289, an act to amend the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Act. Those in favour of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 289, an act to amend the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Act, introduced by the honourable member, Mrs. Hughes, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Telecommunications.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to table the 1990 annual report for the Alberta Heritage Foundation for Medical Research entitled Eye on Health.
Thank you. The Honourable Associate Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to table with the House the 1990-91 edition of A Child's Guide to Farm Safety. This guide will be distributed to rural schools throughout Alberta. And Alberta Agriculture is proud of the cooperation of this year's corporate sponsors, TransAlta Utilities and Alberta Power. They continue to show industry's commitment to providing educational materials which enhance awareness towards a safe working farm environment for all of Alberta's farm families.
Thank you.
Introduction of special guests.
Honorable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly a group of students from the Gadsby School in the Stettler constituency. I've had a chance to meet this group of students as I usually do, Mr. Speaker, and I must say they are a bright, happy group who are enjoying their visit here in the legislature. There are 24 students. They are accompanied by their teacher, Steve McKnight, and parent, Pat McKnight, Steve's wife. They are seated in the members' gallery. I would ask them to stand and be welcomed by the Assembly.
Associate Minister of Agriculture, followed by Clover Barr.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly 3 special guests with us today who are responsible for the production of the child guides to farm safety. They are seated in the members gallery, and I would introduce Mr. Bob Westbury from TransAlta Utilities, Mr. Dan Van Keeken from Alberta Power, and Mr. Solomon Kermentang from Alberta Agriculture Farm Safety Branch. I would ask them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Clover Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my distinct pleasure today to introduce to you, and through you to the members of the Assembly, 62 guests from the Wynne Ferguson Community School in the city of Fort Saskatchewan in the Clover Bar constituency. They are seated in the public gallery, Mr. Speaker, and I have 2 grade 6 classes from Wynne Ferguson School seated in the gallery. They are accompanied by teachers and parents and also by a bus driver. The teachers are Gayleen Smith and Sandy Godou. The parents accompanying them are Mrs. McMaster, Mrs. Yurko, and Mrs. Marler, and their bus driver, Alf Faubert. I would ask our guests to stand, please, and I would ask the members of the Assembly to extend their warm traditional welcome.
Edmonton Goldbar, followed by the Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm privileged to introduce to you today and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly 13 students from the Terrace Heights Elementary School in Goldbar. Mr. Speaker, they're accompanied by their teachers, Mr. Pomfrey and Mrs. Fairbank, and I understand they're seated in the members' gallery. I'd ask them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the House.
Thank you. Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of the legislature 4 members of the Professional Council of Registered Nursing Assistants. They are seated in the members gallery, and I would like first of all to introduce an old boyhood friend of mine and friend still today, Tom Hennett, along with his associates Patricia Fafard-Hoff, Eileen Boudreau, and Paul Boudreau. They are seated in the members gallery, Mr. Speaker, and I ask that they stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Member for Highwood.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honored today to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly, gentleman, Mr. Larry Klassen of Calgary. He's the chairman of the Ministers' Advisory Council on the Turner Valley Gas Plant and also director of the Oilfield Society, who are championing the Hell's Half Acre Interpretive Center. Again, he's sitting in the members' gallery, and I'd ask him to stand and receive the warm traditional welcome of this Assembly.
Ministerial statements.
Labor.
Mr. Speaker, 20 years ago tomorrow, the Royal Commission on the Status of Women issued its groundbreaking report calling for governments across Canada to ensure equality of opportunity for women. But, Mr. Speaker, although we have made progress, we still have a long way to go in achieving full equality. One major barrier is something not even mentioned by the Royal Commission. I speak of violence against women. Mr. Speaker, the tragic deaths in Montreal 1 year ago today, last December 6th, this year's dramatic increase in the number of women and children seeking shelter, the stories we hear almost every day of brutality in the home, Mr. Speaker, all of these underscore the urgency of the problem. Violence is a crime. It wounds and distorts the lives of countless individuals. It undermines the stability of the family. It destroys our collective soul. How can we work and live together in this province when, for so many of our women and children, it is unsafe to go home or to walk outside? That this state of affairs should exist is intolerable and unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, I wish to table a copy of the Lake Louise Declaration on Violence Against Women. It's a declaration which was issued last May by the ministers responsible for the status of women from all across Canada when they were meeting here in Alberta. It calls on every individual, community, and government in Canada to do everything possible to help the women and families affected by violence. We must all work together to achieve a society free from violence. Mr. Speaker, I know this declaration is not enough to stop violence. I know it's not enough to comfort the women and children who will seek shelter tonight. But it is a starting point and a call to further action. Today, as we recall the sad events of last December the 6th, and as we prepare to mark the 20th anniversary of the Royal Commission, I ask all members of this legislature to join with me in endorsing the Lake Louise Declaration and in reaffirming our commitment to eliminating violence against women. We must eliminate violence against women. We must do it, and Mr. Speaker, we will do it together. As a start, I would ask all members of this Assembly to rise and observe 1 moment's silence.
Thank you. Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly, we in the official opposition would certainly, along with the minister, endorse and agree with the Lake Louise Declaration, Mr. Speaker. I think all of us in the Assembly, it makes common sense to do that, Mr. Speaker. But I guess I would like to say that in 20 years, in some ways, this problem has got worse. If I look at some of the figures in just for Alberta, Mr. Speaker, it's roughly, probably this is as a low estimate, over 66,000 women in Alberta were battered last year. And last year, those 9,405 battered women were admitted to shelters, but unfortunately over 4,000 were turned away, Mr. Speaker. That's a 346% increase from the previous year. As the Minister is well aware, people at the Rape Crisis Center are turning people away, Mr. Speaker, for those people that have been sexually assaulted. I would say to the Minister, what's happening to our women and children is perhaps one of the most serious social problems. Perhaps it is the most serious social problem that we face in our society today. And that was certainly reinforced to us as we traveled across the province, Mr. Speaker, looking at what's happening to children in this province. I certainly agree with the last statement the Minister makes. We must eliminate violence against women. We must do it, and Mr. Speaker, we will do it together. And that will lead me into question period. Mr. Speaker, I'll give some suggestions about how this might be done, at least a step in that direction.
Oral question period.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to, following up on the ministerial statement, ask the Premier some questions. As already mentioned, Mr. Speaker, we know today marks the first anniversary of the tragic massacre of 14 young women in Montreal. And of course, on behalf of the New Democratic Party in Alberta, and I'm sure all the people in the Assembly, we wish to express our deep condolences to the families of these victims and to all women collectively sharing in their grief. Mr. Speaker, there can be no more appropriate day than this to examine what we as a province can do to address the very real problem of violence against women. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned already, this problem is extremely serious because it is estimated that over 66,000 women in Alberta were battered last year as a result of violence. Mr. Speaker, to put this in perspective, roughly 3,000 people were injured as a result of impaired driving. Now, my question to the Premier is this. Given that the number of women who were injured at the hands of men or battered at the hands of men is 20 times greater than those injured by impaired drivers, will the government immediately begin launching a comprehensive, publicly funded campaign targeted at ending violence against women, very similar to its very successful impaired driving initiative?
Mr. Speaker, of course, our Minister of Labor, who has just spoken through the ministerial statement, was speaking for the government. And the minister has also been carrying on a program of special initiatives for women. And I would like her to respond to the honourable leader because she has, of course, been working in this direction.
Thank you. The suggestion is an excellent one, and in fact we are acting on an initiative that is very similar to the one you suggest, following up on the Solicitor General's announcements last month, which were supported by the Ministers of Family and Social Services, of course, the policing initiatives and family violence. We are also planning to have a multimedia awareness campaign that will highlight the message that family violence is a crime, and that if you need help, please call and there will be help available to you. That is planned for launching in the next month, and we would hope that will also be one more initiative. There's no one single initiative in this area that can eliminate violence. I think essentially it must come from the heart of each and every Albertan first, but we are going to be supporting those efforts.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we look forward to that program, Mr. Speaker. But it's also an appropriate day, I believe, to examine what the province is not doing to address the problem of violence against women in Alberta. As I mentioned, last year 9,405 battered women and children were admitted to shelters, but 4,000 were turned away, and I've already referred to the Rape Crisis Center turning people away, Mr. Speaker. My question then to either the Premier or to the Minister, will the government now show the women of Alberta that they are truly concerned about violence against women by immediately, not next year or 2 years from now, immediately making funds available to the severely underfunded shelters and rape crisis centers in the province?
Mr. Speaker, we are ever aware of the growing need, and I think because public awareness is rising, so are those Albertans who are becoming aware that there is help available. And consequently, there's an ever-increasing need to reach out and help these people. It seems to me that in the 20 years, I mentioned earlier that the Royal Commission on the Status of Women, signed by Mrs. John Bird and filed in 1970, did not even mention violence as an issue of importance to women and to men in Canada. And yet today we are going more and more public with it. People who never even thought about the issue are now speaking out and acting publicly. And as a result, we find ourselves reaching out to help more and more victims of violence and trying to keep that assistance fully available to them. I am sure that the needs of Albertans will be considered in the budget discussions that are ongoing now. And I'm sure there will be some responses to the full extent that this government can bring itself to do.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for some that's far too long. That's not till March, April, Mr. Speaker, and this is, as the Minister indicated herself, a growing problem. I would think that there seems to be money for lots of other things. The Treasurer has $330 million in special warrants. That would have been much better to put it there and some of the other things he was talking about. But, Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk about violence against women without talking about violence against children. Mr. Speaker, in traveling around the province from city to city, it was certainly brought the message strongly to us that the province is not spending enough money in this area. They have a growing problem, Mr. Speaker. And my question to the Minister is simply this. If the government has money to give to AGT investors, money to throw away to its business friends and paint railway cars in the province, can the Minister explain why it has no money at this time to mend the broken bones and hearts of children in Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, of course, does not mean that money can mend broken hearts and homes. But there are things that we can do to help people in Alberta who are broken-hearted and whose dreams have been shattered because of violence. And those things we strive to do and to help, and we will continue to do so to the best of our ability.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier. A few years ago, I recall Mr. Mulroney stating that if we gave his Conservatives 20 years, we wouldn't recognize this country.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that, Mr. Speaker, but a lot of people are now wondering whether we're going to have a country left in Mulroney, Mr. Speaker. We have the free trade agreement, so-called, the GST. We already see them taking trains out of communities, post offices out of communities, and now the CBC out of communities. And that's only after 6 years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, though, I want to focus, of course, on the CBC carnage. While I realize that the Premier's government cannot reverse the cuts, and judging by its reaction to our motion yesterday, they don't even seem to care, Mr. Speaker. But I want to ask the Premier this very specifically. Has the Premier made his opposition known to the federal government about the unacceptable closing of the Calgary CBC?
Mr. Speaker, I guess all members of the legislature know, and all people watching us know, that Canadians must all pull together in trying to reduce the horrendous debt that our country faces. And there are a variety of ways of trying to reduce that debt. Now, some of the moves we may agree with, some individuals' moves we may not. For my part, in the recent moves with the cutting of the CBC budgets in Calgary, my Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications is contacting the federal government because, for my part, why have the cuts in the regions? Why not have the cuts at the center where there is huge CBC expenditures? And why not build the strength, rather, in the regions? So, Mr. Speaker, my Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications may wish to respond further. There are, of course, Mr. Speaker, other potential solutions, and one would be that some of the things that governments try to do, including the CBC, should be handled by privatization as well.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you know, privatization has created a lot of the problems. It's not always the solution, and the government shouldn't be so ideological that they can't see that, Mr. Speaker. Look what's happening to Air Canada, and look what's happening, Mr. Speaker. And TELUS is another good example. But, Mr. Speaker, then I want to ask either the Premier or the Minister that if they really want to deal with the debt federally, if they just lowered the interest rate by 3 points, that'd be $5 billion right there. That's a hell of a lot more. Right on. But, Mr. Speaker, to either gentleman, there was some interesting involvement with the Saskatchewan government. Perhaps the minister is aware, where I have a copy of the Regina Leader Post, where the government of Saskatchewan, a conservative government there, Mr. Speaker, has offered to help its CBC employees in Saskatoon purchase their station if they wish, Mr. Speaker. And my question to the Minister of Telecommunications or the Premier, would the government consider approaching the Calgary CBC employees and discussing a similar type of proposal with them so we can preserve these jobs and, more importantly, make sure that we have good public interest in quality media in this province, especially in the southern part of the province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is indeed a tough time for governments from the standpoint of making those tough decisions. And the CBC decision was obviously an economic decision. I think that we all respect the jurisdiction of the federal government and the corporation itself in making the decision. But having said that, I think that at the same time we regret that as a Calgary MLA, obviously I'm concerned that the impact this may have on the local news gathering in the Calgary area. As the Premier has indicated, I have placed a call to the Honourable Marcel Mass, the Minister of Communications, to determine exactly what measures the corporation will in fact be taking to ensure that there is appropriate level of local news gathering in the Calgary region in this restructuring process. I noticed in the press release there's an indication there that the regional production resources are being rationalized to ensure that each region has the capacity to provide appropriate program services as efficiently and effectively as possible, and we'll be following up with the Minister to find exactly what he has in mind in that regard.
What's the question? Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister obviously didn't hear the question. I was trying to see if he was going to operate like the Saskatchewan government. And I rationalize and disentangle, but that's all a bunch of right-wing rhetoric. It means nothing to people, Mr. Speaker. But by the Minister's non-answer, I take that they're not looking at it in the same way the Saskatchewan government. So I'll ask the Minister to even maintain what we have. I noticed and asked about Access Network. He said that he has no plans to make cuts there, Mr. Speaker. So I want to ask him very specifically, will he go beyond this weak response and give Albertans his absolute assurance that the Access Network will not suffer cuts by this government like his federal governments have just imposed on CBC?
Hear, hear.
Well, it's interesting to note, Mr. Speaker, that what the Leader of the Opposition is suggesting is, in effect, loans to private people to purchase, which is, in effect, a mode of privatization. But with respect to Access, Mr. Speaker, we are in the process, as the Honourable Leader knows, of our budgetary submissions. Submissions will be made on behalf of Access. I will be representing making those representations on behalf of Access to the Treasury Board. There's no doubt that Access has provided very valuable service in a number of areas, both in the production and acquisition of high-quality programming for Albertans and in the multimedia learning resources for teachers and for students. So those representations will be made, and I think it's fair to say, Mr. Speaker, as well, that Access Board and management have done very, very well in providing a very lean and mean ship in the production. And I think they deserve our congratulations, and we will be working with them as they pursue their mandate.
Thank you. Leader of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, 75 Albertans are waiting for entry into the Misericordia Hospital for hip and knee replacement operations. They must wait about 6 months as of today. A new occurrence has caused greater delay. Delay in the past has been caused by the lack of operating space and bed closures. Now the hospital administrators have informed our offices that the prosthetics that are needed, the hardware that's needed for hip and knee replacements, will run out in January, so that in February and March there won't even be the hardware to do these operations. We're further informed that this delay means aggravated pain or more pain for people, and it usually means that there is a higher cost to the medical system in the end. My first question to the minister is this. Given that the minister is supposedly aware of what's happening with the Medicare scene in Alberta, I'd like to know how she can allow this sort of situation to exist and what her explanation is for it.
Mr. Speaker, those Albertans who are on a waiting list, wherever that waiting list occurs throughout our health system, are Albertans who are constantly assessed medically, and if they are needed to be removed from that waiting list and be provided with services, that is what occurs. If the honourable member is suggesting that the only solution to the issue, which I suspect is where he's getting to, is to give more money for the purposes of running that particular hospital or any other that I'm sure he's going to list off in the next little while, is simply something that I believe we've got to take a very careful look at. And we are taking a very careful look at it, Mr. Speaker. And this year alone, we've given $3.4 billion to health in this province. We've given an additional $240 million this year over last. And we've got as well the most expensive universal health care system in the world. I think we can come up with more creative solutions than just more money. And that's what this health system and this minister and this government is committed to.
See your wallet, Lawrence.
Mr. Speaker, ministers are there to set priorities and to know what's going on. I get from the explanation that the minister has given that she's not aware of this serious situation, that the hardware, the prosthetics are not available. I'd like to know, given that senior citizens are usually the people that are most affected by this sort of operation, will she do something now to solve the problem?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the technology which allows Albertans to have access to a procedure which replaces a joint is technology which I think is a marvel and a credit to Alberta scientists and to Alberta physicians and to people around the world who are committed to see that we perform procedures better. But Mr. Speaker, let there be no doubt about it, those procedures are very, very expensive. And the way we operate it in Canada so that all Albertans and all Canadians will have access where needed to those needed medical services in our universal health system is to put them on a priority listing. And that listing is one, as I said in the first answer, that is assessed constantly medically. And I believe it's the right way to proceed.
Good, they're on the list.
Mr. Speaker, given that hospital capping, which is applied across the board like a broad axe, is causing this difficulty, and given that doctors are informing us that it would be cost efficient for the minister to do something about this now so that added costs would not have to be borne by the Medicare system, is the minister prepared to meet with doctors involved in this field and with administrators and experts to get this problem solved now?
Mr. Speaker, number one, I have met with doctors, including doctors at the Misericordia, who are involved in the procedure. I'm well aware of the issue on supplies. I'm well aware as well that under the acute care funding plan, which this government is leading the way in Canada in putting reform into our health system, one of the issues within that health care plan is looking at the issue of fixed costs. Fixed costs include supplies into the hospital. Are we putting an adequate amount here? Should there be more in this area, less in that? The third initiative that's underway in Edmonton that is changing the face of health in Alberta and in Edmonton is a committee of all of the chairmen of the hospital boards, first time we've ever had that in Edmonton, that is looking at how we can look at capital development amongst the various health facilities, capital equipment amongst the various hospitals facilities, so that we ensure we're getting the best value out of the dollars we've got. I think we're making marvelous progress, and it is quite frankly a credit to the practitioners and the people involved in health in this province that we are able to say that in fact we are leading reform in Canada.
Red Deer North.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Premier, and it focuses on one word. It's that awful T word, taxes. It's a little bewildering, Mr. Speaker, for the average working person in Alberta to try and sort out all the signals, the economic signals at the provincial, national, and international level in terms of what lies in the year ahead economically. My constituents are just asking me if I can give them a straight answer that affects their bottom line, which is their paychecks. To the Premier, can the Premier tell us, are we indeed going to be holding the line on people's income taxes this year, or are they going to be seeing an increase? Can we just have a straight answer on that, please?
Mr. Speaker, there is a dynamic situation in Alberta these days that Albertans are noticing when they compare their province with other parts of Canada or other parts of North America, perhaps other parts of the world. And that is that we have a dynamic, strong economy, the strongest economy in North America. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we are able to have the lowest taxes in Canada and no sales tax. Now, when you put that combination together with the fact there are more Albertans working this year than ever before in the history of our province, because of the diversification efforts and the efforts of our government to keep the economy strong, you then can see that the dollars are being left in the hands of the people. And then, therefore, you have such things as the highest per capita retail sales in Canada and so on. Now, Mr. Speaker, we're determined to keep Albertans working, and we're determined to keep Alberta's taxes the lowest in Canada. There will be no increase in income taxes in Canada. As a matter of fact, I remind you, Mr. Speaker, the last move in income taxes in Alberta was to cut income taxes in Alberta.
Well, supplementary, you know, we're quiet and respect your right to ask questions. We ask you for the same decency. The question supplementary that I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Premier's optimism, and I know that he stands by his word, but the fact is, despite the Iraq oil price situation, our energy revenues are about $1 billion less than 5 years ago. Does this commitment to hold the line on taxes mean we're going to have to abandon the commitment to balance the budget?
No, Mr. Speaker. As a matter of fact, I think as the provincial treasurer has said before, we are on plan to a balanced budget in 91-92 for Albertans. We are determined to balance the budget. We have, in fact, the very ingredients that are necessary. The work we've done to have the strongest economy in Canada. The work we've done to have more Albertans with jobs than ever before in the history of our province. With that combination and with the tightest fiscal management of any government in Canada over the last 5 years, and that's a fact, the toughest, finest fiscal management of any government in Canada over the past 5 years, and that's a fact. Maybe the universe that combination, Mr. Speaker, we're determined to balance the budget as we planned.
Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today we were shocked to learn that yesterday in Edmonton a 12-year-old girl was sexually assaulted while on her way to school. Yet one more example of the pervasive problem of sexual violence against women and children. To the Premier, given that the Premier has recently received representation on this issue as well as a copy of the Ricks Rogers report on the devastating impact of sexual abuse, will the Premier now commit to making his government's priority the treatment and prevention of child sexual abuse?
Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's a member in the Assembly who doesn't agree that this is a shocking and a despicable event when it happens. There are things that happen in our society that no amount of money, no amount of spending, no amount of caring can stop. But it is true, I did meet with an Albertan yesterday who expressed strongly views regarding how we might do better in this area. And I expressed to that Albertan that we're always trying to do better in this area. I met also in the meeting with me was my Minister of Health, who discussed some alternatives. And she is going to work with the Minister of Family and Social Services, and together we'll see if we can do more. We're doing a lot, but do more, because it is something that you can't eliminate, but we want to, as much as possible, alleviate the impact on the poor victims of that crime.
Mr. Speaker, this is not an isolated event. 1 in 4 children is sexually abused. We need more than words, and money will help for treatment programs. Mr. Speaker, the Ricks Rogers report details links between child sexual abuse, drug and alcohol abuse, prostitution, runaway children, learning disabilities, dysfunctional relationships, and crime. The adult survivors require treatment if they are to overcome the result of society's failure to protect and nurture them during their childhood. And we need to eliminate this problem, Mr. Speaker. Will the Premier now earmark funds to provide treatment resources for adult survivors of child sexual abuse?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there are funds, but I must draw attention to the honourable member that while you may set as a goal the elimination of that crime, and we would all try to, there's a heavy responsibility on families as well in this area. Governments can't do everything for everybody. At some point there has to be the responsibility as well for the families to move into the picture and to work along with the resources that the governments can provide. As I told the honourable member, my Minister of Health and Minister of Family and Social Services will be working along those lines along with the Solicitor General.
Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, as has already been indicated, the CBC top brass in Ottawa, because of federal Tory government underfunding, took a broad axe and severed one of Calgary's major links with Canadian culture. I'm pleased to see that today the Premier is concerned and that he's asked his Minister of Telecommunications to take action. But this is a flip-flop. Yesterday, the members on the other side refused to give unanimous consent to a resolution condemning the action of the CBC brass. I think the members opposite have heard the outrage of Albertans and are trying to cover up today. I was also outraged.
Honourable member, thank you, please. Thank you, Calgary Buffalo, for your less than constructive comment. It's also a tradition of the House not to be commenting negatively on decisions of the House as previously made. Read your standing orders, Calgary Buffalo. Thank you. Now can we have the question? Calgary McKnight.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Culture, whose attitudes yesterday were different than those of the Premier today. He indicated that the cuts he agreed with the cuts because and he indicated that on a superficial basis that the CBC has more employees than do private broadcasters. I'd like to ask the minister if he's willing to recant and realize that he's the minister of all of Alberta, not only Edmonton and North, and turn up the heat also as the minister.
Thank you, honourable member. Come on.
Mr. Speaker, in answer to that question, which was very precisely and carefully put, I would answer that yes, I do understand that I have cultural responsibilities for the entire province of Alberta.
Will the minister therefore attend the rally being planned tomorrow in support of Mayor Al Dur and fight for the right of 1 million Albertans?
We're working here in the
Mr. Speaker, I'm attempting to get this straight now. We have an Edmonton MLA who's a provincial minister attending a Calgary rally on a national question.
That's right.
I have other plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Highwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to direct a question to the Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services, the minister who is responsible for the Community Facility Enhancement Program. Mr. Speaker, it's come to my attention that there are a number of railway cars whose intended purpose is to haul grain. These cars are alleged to be newly painted with slogans which cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.7 million. Now, can the minister explain whether this is an example of government extravagant expenditure, which of course goes against the grain?
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. 10 years ago in 1980, this Legislative Assembly, through the Alberta Heritage Saving Trust Fund, approved a program to purchase 1,000 grain hopper cars. That was part of a national initiative was taken in Canada that included the federal government of Canada and various provinces in Canada that would allocate monies to move grain across this country. Part of the condition of the arrangement was that in the 10th year after the purchase, the grain hopper cars were to be repainted as part of the maintenance program. And all members in fiscal year 1989-90, when they approved unanimously, every member in this House approved the estimates of the Minister of Public Works, Supplies and Services, gave me approval for $1.63 million in the first year of a 3-year program to repaint the hopper cars. And earlier this year, in fiscal 1990-91, the estimates of Public Works, Supply and Services carried $2 million for this particular project. The contract has been awarded. Fortunately, an Edmonton firm won the contract to repaint the hopper cars, providing jobs in the Edmonton area for Albertans. And all of these hopper cars will be repainted, Mr. Speaker, over a 3-year time frame. And we have got about 250 to 300 hopper cars painted to date, and we are going to continue the process, Mr. Speaker, of continuing the job. The hopper cars, the symbolism of the hopper cars has been changed, Mr. Speaker, from the original intent where it focused on the symbol of the Heritage Saving Trust Fund. Now we have focused on Alberta, the most beautiful province in North America, and we want to enhance Alberta in all of her majesty, Mr. Speaker.
And thank the minister for explaining why you're painting them, but how can the minister then justify logos and slogans which today advise casual readers who are at a crossing to take an Alberta break in Barrhead? Why not Highwood? Why not Longview? Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table this photograph to substantiate my question.
Mr. Speaker, let's just put this into perspective. We have 1,000 Alberta hopper cars. We now have focused on the hopper car the name Alberta. All members will also recall that one of the most successful tourism promotion programs that this government has ever undertaken was one that focused on the phrase, take an Alberta break. Now, after a lot of discussion and thinking about this, Mr. Speaker, one could not have come up, I think, with a more useful way of using the hopper cars in addition to advertising Alberta, but also putting the message on take an Alberta break. And then we went one step further, Mr. Speaker. We have decided to put the name of each Alberta incorporated municipality on one of these hopper cars, Mr. Speaker. So all incorporated towns, villages, cities in Alberta will have a hopper car named in their honor. These hopper cars will go over every mile of rail in North America. They will have a potential market of 275 million North Americans who will see this for the next 10 years. They will see Alberta. They will be encouraged to take an Alberta break, and then they'll say, when we come to Alberta, where will we go? Well, we'll be able to go to Stettler or Fort Assiniboine or Lloydminster or Edmonton or Barrhead, Mr. Speaker. Wonderful, wonderful.
As a railroad buff, I look forward to being at some level crossing and seeing one that says, take an Alberta break, visit the Alberta legislature. Edmonton Jasper, please.
Mr. Speaker, all well and good, but is it art? Earlier this year, after years of stonewalling, the government declared certain sections of the Peace and Athabasca rivers, which are downstream of pulp mills, off limits to anglers and other fishermen. The evidence now available suggests that what we previously thought was safe levels of dioxin is not safe at all. In fact, the U.S. EPA guideline is 100 times more stringent than the Canadian guideline is right now. Now, in view of the fact that we now know that dioxin has been found in fish some considerable distance downstream from the existing pulp mills, I want to ask the Minister of the Environment if he will agree that the Alberta government must, I say absolutely must, find out the full extent of dioxin and furan pollution in our rivers, on the Peace and Athabasca in particular, before it approves any other pulp mills. That is to say, no ALPAC decision until we have all the baseline studies done.
I said before to this minister, Mr. Speaker, that that will be a government decision, and it will be based on not only the findings of the original ALPAC report, but the scientific review that was conducted just recently, our assessment of that review, the federal government's assessment of that review, and pulling all that information together. And when it all comes together, we will make a reasonable and sound judgment with respect to that particular project. But notwithstanding that, Mr. Speaker, the baseline studies on the Peace and Athabasca rivers, as they lead into the Mackenzie River, will be conducted, and will be conducted jointly by the province and the federal government. And if indeed those studies show that mitigative measures need to be taken to correct the situation relative to all mills on the Peace and Athabasca River systems, then those mills will have to refit accordingly.
Mr. Speaker, the minister disassociates himself from the decision. He says it's a government decision, so I ask the Premier. It's Aboriginal people today who are on the front line resisting the mega forestry development. They know that the clear-cut logging on undisputed lands, dioxin and half-rotting wood chips that are in the river are bullets aimed directly at them. That's why the Lubicon are resisting. That's why the Little Cree and the Chippewa Indians are doing the research that the government should be doing. That's why the Northwest Territories is poised to sue the pants off of this government if it approves ALPAC. And I want to ask the Premier, he's aware that people throughout this province won't put up with the way you've dragged your feet on Northern Water Studies and the agreements with the Northwest Territories, with the way you use logging as a weapon to pressure Indian people, and the way you're prepared to ram your vision of the North down their throats without their say.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member must know, I think it would sink in even for him. The ALPAC project has had the most comprehensive review, unmatched of any in the history of Alberta, certainly, and probably in Canada. Maybe the world. Mr. Speaker, I think the people of Alberta now want a decision. As the Honourable Minister of Environment said, a decision will be coming, taking into account all of these hearings, all of the information. One other thing I know the people of Alberta want and appreciate is the fact they have the strongest economy in Canada, and there are jobs for Albertans, and that this government's going to keep it that way.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, zero effluent CTMP pulp mills are being built right now at Chetwynd, BC, and at Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, and a zero effluent pressurized groundwood pulp mill will soon be built in Stewart, BC. Despite this, the Alberta government clings to this idea of an Alpac bleach kraft pulp mill, which will spew a minimum of 370 kilograms of organochlorines into the Athabasca River each and every day. To the Minister of the Environment, why does this government persist in its vision of making Alberta the bleach kraft pulp pollution capital of the world, when at the very least this minister could replace Alpac with a zero effluent pulp mill?
Well, I don't think this minister could replace anything with anything else. You know, this member, you know, he thinks that you can just go around waving wands and just create anything that you want to create, you know. That's the kind of dreamland that he lives in, Mr. Speaker. But aside from that, quite simply, the policy of Alberta, unlike any other jurisdiction in this country, perhaps in North America, and perhaps in the world, is that whatever is deemed to be the best environmental technology must apply. If, in fact, the two mills he mentions, and they're CTMP mills, and the application doesn't apply at this particular time to the bleachcraft process, but nonetheless, if that process proves out, and you have to understand in Saskatchewan it's an experiment, and in BC it's an experiment, and if those technologies work out, then those are the technologies that will have to be applied to the CTMP mills here. It's as simple as that, and even the honourable members should be able to understand it.
It's no more an experiment than this new Alpac proposed process, Mr. Speaker. How can the minister risk further bleachcraft pulp contamination of Alberta's northern rivers when there is a growing demand for paper that can be produced without environmental damage, and there is in fact zero effluent technology with which to do it?
Mr. Speaker, that begs the question, is there the technology? Yes, two pulp mills are putting in a closed-loop system. If that system works and that technology proves out, then it will be applied here. Now, with respect to the bleachcraft process, well, he's the Dale of the Chippendale of the environmental.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Bow Valley, not on the list. Thank you. Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In June of 1987, the Alberta government decided, along with the Churchill Corporation, to liquidate the portfolio of Alberta Investments Limited. The government, on behalf of the pension fund, had a 28% share in AIL. The government then turned around and lent $3 million to the Churchill Corporation at a fixed interest rate of 8%. Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, given that the $3 million is very poorly secured and that the interest rate is way, way below what the government could have gotten from other similar investments, would the Premier admit that the deal was highly favorable to the Churchill Corporation and very unfavorable to the pension fund?
Mr. Speaker, as I told the honourable member yesterday, I was unfamiliar with the item when he raised it. I've asked the provincial treasurer to take note of the question and give him his answer. The transaction, as I understand it, was made in 1981 or 1982. Former government, former treasurer, but the facts are being pulled together for the honourable member.
Well, the honourable member pulled the facts together from the Securities Commission with documents available to the public. The situation, Mr. Speaker, is this. The government got rid of its blue chip portfolio in Alberta Investments Limited and then exchanged it for a questionable loan to a high-risk company in 1987. Indeed, almost none of the other shareholders gambled their money the way this government gambled with the pension fund. And then to add insult to injury, Churchill was paid $500,000 to liquidate the AIL portfolio, even though the government already had in place mechanisms to do the same thing. Would the Premier explain to us how this is not a sweetheart deal for Churchill Corporation?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, I've already answered the question for the honourable member that the provincial treasurer was following up on this matter, which was conducted back in 81 or 82, and then a subsequent transaction, I gather, in 1987. We'll give them the details, as the provincial treasurer always likes to do. I think, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member merely has to wait, and the information will come to him.
Thank you. Member for Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the proposed Industry Training Act is fraught with problems, and it's exacerbated by the attitude of the government. The proposed act will directly affect workers, and yet not a single worker was interviewed for their input into the act because, to quote a department document, it's very costly and time-consuming to locate journeymen. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, more than 2,000 employers have been interviewed for their input. So I would ask the Minister of Career Development and Employment, will the Minister commit today to have his department interview at least an equal number of certified journeyman tradespeople so as to get a more balanced approach to this piece of legislation?
Well, Mr. Speaker, and to all honourable members of the Assembly, I believe we have taken a balanced approach. It's quite interesting because the honourable member referred to the word single. Well, you know, it's quite interesting because I know that there's been over 5,000 copies of the discussion paper on the proposed Industry Training Act that were distributed to key groups. Those groups included such groups as the Apprenticeship and Trade Certification Board members, the local and provincial apprenticeship committee members, as well as labour and industry groups. In addition, Mr. Speaker, and to all honourable members, some 43,000 letters have gone out requesting written submissions that pertain to the discussion paper. To date, some 1,000 have been received, primarily all from journeymen. Of the 2,000 industry or employers, as the honourable members referred to, 70% of those are journeymen. As well, I've met individually with many, many, many groups. We've had private meetings in Fort McMurray, public meetings as well, Edmonton, Calgary. I've personally met with numerous representatives of all employer groups and employees, some individual 50 to 60 trade union representatives as well. If anything, the balance weights in favor of the journeyman and the individual.
Good job, Norm.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's just look at the balance, because in the current Manpower Development Act, there's provision for equal representation between employers and employees on the local apprenticeship committees, and that requires members of, and you have to be a member of the LAC in order to advance to the PAC, the Provincial Apprenticeship Committee. Yet in the new act, in the proposed act, there is no provision for worker representation on the new board. Now, Mr. Speaker, I put to the Minister of Career Development and Employment, is the Minister willing to reinstate the requirement for labour representation on those boards, and if not, why not?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the representation made by the honourable member, but would like to allay his fears and perhaps some misunderstanding, because there is really nothing to reinstate. All appointments to the provincial and local committees, as well as the apprenticeship board, would continue so as to ensure equal representation from the employers and from employees. I would accept this, as I say, as representation from the member, would ask him to wait till the legislation is introduced. It's proposed it would be in spring, and I would ensure the honourable member and members of the Assembly that that consideration will certainly be resolved at that time.
Time for question period has expired. Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you, Mr. Speaker, and also to members of the Assembly, a group of students and parents and teachers who are with us from Pine Ridge Community School in the constituency of Calgary-Montrose. There are some 63 of them. And I would ask that they stand and be recognized by this Assembly. Let me also say, Mr. Speaker, that they are joined by teachers Jennifer de Villenfane, Judy McKay, Jennifer Stewart, parents Mr. Late, and Ms. Carter, and volunteer Laura Devitt. They are in both galleries, and I'd ask members to give them a warm welcome to the Assembly.
Additional? Thank you. Member Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce someone who has worked for a very prominent Canadian historical firm with great cultural ties to this nation. I'm referring, of course, to the Hudson Bay Company that for more than 300 years has had a prominent place in the history and the culture and the fabric of this nation. This individual is employed by the Hudson Bay Company at its Southgate branch, which is a prominent landmark in the great and beautiful constituency of Edmonton Park Allen. I'm referring to Lee Ariel, who today is accompanied by the wife of the member who represents Edmonton Park Allen in this legislature, Judy Main. I'd ask them to stand and receive a warm welcome.
Standing Order 40 request, Leader of the Liberal Party.